Hello, welcome to the video. Happy 4th of July to everyone in the United States. While I am Australian, prefer the insanity of Australia's wildlife over the my 600-pound life contestants of the US, I do have a lot more respect for the US than a lot of other Australians do. As a result, given it's the 250th anniversary of America, I thought it would be best to make a video to celebrate. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the tale of Capitalsaurus. Also, as a side note, I am sick right now, so if I sound any different, now you know. In January 1898, construction took place in Washington, D.C. under contractor James Murphy, which looked at upgrading the city's sewer system. During the digging process, workers found a rock that they later sent off to geologist Charles David White of the Smithsonian. White identified the rock as a fossil, but didn't go much further than that. Apparently more fossil material was found in the same place, but this is all we currently have. The bone proceeded to sit in the collections of the Smithsonian with the catalogue number USNM 3049 until 1911. Vertebrate paleontology professor Dr. Richard Lull of Yale University would look at the specimens in Smithsonian's collection, including USNM 3049. Lull identified it as a caudal vertebrae of a theropod dinosaur, which he believed belonged to the genus Creosaurus, specifically a new species he named Creosaurus potens. In 1920, paleontologist Charles Gilmore, who you might remember from some of my older videos on more famous dinosaurs, would later examine Allosaurus fossils and conclude that both Allosaurus and Creosaurus were synonyms. However, the chances of the Creosaurus potens holotype, USNM 3049, being Allosaurus was quite slim. You see, the specimen came from sediments that make up the Arundel Formation, which is Upper Aptian to Lower Albian stages in age, or approximately 125 to 100.5 million years in age. For comparison, Allosaurus generally occurs in the Oxfordian, Kimmeridgian, and Tiffonian stages, or anywhere from 163.5 to 145 million years ago. This means that Allosaurus can't be the identity of USNM 3049. Gilmore, not sure what to do about this specimen exactly, questionably assigned it to Dryptosaurus as Dryptosaurus potens, stating more material is needed to uncover what species this caudal vertebrate truly is. This brings us to the late 1980s, where one Dr. Peter Kranz would move to DC and start researching what was known of Washington, DC's paleontology. He had come across USNM 3049, where he had nicknamed it Capitalsaurus in a 1990 issue of Washington magazine written by Howard Means. Later, in 1998, a movement was started by Kranz to try and get Capitalsaurus recognized as Washington, D.C.'s official dinosaur, and was successful with the Official Dinosaur Designation Act of 1998, which is quite interesting in of itself. In the bill, it is claimed that Capitalsaurus may have been an ancestor of T-Rex, which is definitely something to say the least. In 2000, January 28th was declared as Capitalsaurus Day in Washington, D.C. According to the Boundary Stones article on Capitalsaurus, the ceremonial resolution acknowledging Capitalsaurus as an official day by the Council of the District of Columbia wasn't passed until a week after the day had passed in 2001. To keep this video short, I will note I highly recommend reading the Boundary Stones article linked below for more detail. Point is, after being dubbed the official dinosaur of America's capital city, a lot of people in Washington started having a sense of pride with Capitalsaurus. And while it is pretty cool seeing paleontology recognized in this way, with the place of its discovery being renamed to Capitalsaurus Court, a street sign depicting Capitalsaurus hunting, and a limited edition beer, sadly the name Capitalsaurus isn't really an official name. The Smithsonian Institute, given it holds the only known specimen of this animal, says there's no scientific publications that recognize the name Capitalsaurus as valid, or describe characters that make it distinct from other dinosaur genera. As an example, while this came around 20 years after the bill was implemented, this 2018 paper I skimmed through for this video listed USNM 3049 as Creosaurus potens. Where I did only skim through this paper, one part I find interesting is that it briefly speculates that the caudal vertebra the only physical bone we have that is associated with Capitalsaurus, actually belongs to Acrocanthosaurus. Due to its geological age and its typical belief of being a theropod, a lot of people believe Capitalsaurus to be synonymous with Acrocanthosaurus. This means a couple of things if that's the case. First off, this could possibly result in a Manospondylus scenario, where if Manospondylus is the same as Tyrannosaurus, the older name, that being Manospondylus, takes priority. The same would apply here. If it was somehow proven that Creosaurus potens was actually the same as Acrocanthosaurus tokensis, then there's a chance that Creosaurus potens, being the older name, takes priority and Acrocanthosaurus becomes invalid. However, just like Manospondylus, given the name is assigned to some pretty bad material, and it's not as commonly used as Tyrannosaurus, and Tyrannosaurus has been used throughout hundreds of papers through literal decades, the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature decided to make an exception for Tyrannosaurus. This is because no one uses Manospondylus, and it would be a massive overhaul in Tyrannosaur literature if Tyrannosaurus was rendered invalid and had to be replaced by Manospondylus, especially given the name hasn't been used for literal decades in scientific literature, making it a nomen oblitum, or forgotten name. The same could possibly apply to Acrocanthosaurus, making Creosaurus potens invalid, with Acrocanthosaurus tokensis taking priority due to being used as a valid genus a lot more, and being based on more complete remains than USNM 3049. Regardless, Acrocanthosaurus is probably not under any threat of being erased as far as my understanding of how classification of animals works. Feel free to correct me in the comments section if you want to. I will also note that Capitalsaurus wouldn't really be rendered invalid if Acrocanthosaurus is the real identity of the Capitalsaurus fossil. Capitalsaurus wasn't actually scientifically described in any sort of formal publication. The reason Acrocanthosaurus is a valid name is because you can look up the 1950 paper that gives a scientific description of anatomical traits that makes Acrocanthosaurus distinct from other dinosaurs. While the paper may be seen as being outdated by some, this 76-year-old paper is a crucial part of Acrocanthosaurus research due to it being the first formal description of the animal, therefore defining what an Acrocanthosaurus is. By comparison, Capitalsaurus was coined by Kranz in a magazine article in 1990 with no proper description of its anatomy to actually define what a Capitalsaurus is, making it a nomen nudum, or naked name. This means Capitalsaurus would essentially only be usable as a playful nickname for Acrocanthosaurus if the two were the same creature. However, as some of you may have noticed, the keyword here is if, as in if Capitalsaurus and Acrocanthosaurus are the same. The single caudal vertebra that belongs to Capitalsaurus is too poorly preserved for it to actually be diagnosed as belonging to any species. While it's diagnosable as part of a caudal vertebra, that's not enough for it to be identified as Acrocanthosaurus or not. The main belief for an Acrocanthosaurus identity is that it's from the same geological age as Acro, but it can't solidly be pinned down, especially since there's a chance there could have been other medium to large theropod species in the Arundel Formation. Switching the script up and bringing it around to Kranz, this is kinda what leads me to have not a very high regard for him, to put it lightly. He claims in Dinosaurs of the District of Columbia that a better trained paleontologist, who he doesn't name, in 1998 proved Capitalsaurus to be distinct from all known dinosaurs, and that Kranz reinforced it being called Capitalsaurus. I tried to find the paper in question, and out of desperation turned to using ChatGPT to try and find it. Nothing could be found apart from two papers, and neither, according to AI at least, conclude USNM 3049 as being distinct from all known dinosaurs. I asked if perhaps Kranz was trying to push his own agenda to see Capitalsaurus adopted as valid, and AI concluded in saying he probably was just misremembering. I will admit I do have some respect for Kranz doing this. He has used Capitalsaurus as a tool to help to educate kids in the DC area on paleontology. He actually had 5th and 6th grade students from 2 different elementary schools help to pass the bill that got Capitalsaurus recognized as DC's official dinosaur. So, While maybe not the best way to go about getting more kids into paleontology, it does result in a net positive for paleontology as a whole. Anyway, hope you'll like, share, and subscribe. Have a happy 4th of July, and I'll see you next time I upload.